Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing in St. Paul, Minnesota. And that's Badass Wood Art. Make sure to go over to that'sbadasswoodart.com and use promo code CT Pocket for 20% off any one item at their store. And now's a good time as well to reach out to you guys and help us hit our goal of 3,000 subscribers. We're really close. We're about 500 away. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and a lot of more Vikings content coming down for us. So we got a lot to break down today. Busy day Vikings wise. Obviously, we were live earlier this morning with Darren Wolfson of KSTP, who gave us a ton of information, but things have kind of changed since then. So the biggest one is the Vikings made or came to an agreement with Baltimore Ravens tight end Josh Oliver. So what were your initial reactions to kind of seeing that news? Because I don't think that's quite the move many of us anticipated as we were going to head off free agency. But I'll also say last year they started off with Johnny Munt, and the rest is history. But yeah, what were your initial thoughts to Josh Oliver?
Josh Oliver, yes. He's a good player. So what's interesting is that a lot of fans are going to be probably upset by the move, not understand the move, just given the fact that, we have tons of needs very specifically at cornerback. Yes. After letting Cam Dantzler go the other day. So you would think that the first move we were going to make is at corner, maybe at receiver, something at a position that is of high importance, or that is maybe a little bit more visible in the day-to-day, or, to I guess a casual fan, so to speak.
Right.
We've been talking on this show that the need for a backup tight end was going to be prevalent, that we did need to be talking about that as a need. And we've talked about Braden Willis, and we've talked about, all of these other different tight ends throughout the draft process, because we needed somebody who is a good inline blocker.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Oliver comes to the table as a PFF's number 2 blocking tight end in the league. Yes. Over his first, or over the last year or two. And he provides a lot of pop in that. So there's a couple different plays that we can, go into at some point in time here. But he does a really good job of sealing off blocks and creating, openings for Baltimore to be able to have that effective run game.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, let's look at a couple of them, because
Sure.
we're trying something new here. So if you're watching, first of all, feel free to give us some comments. We'd love to answer any questions you guys might have as it pertains to Vikings free agency or the legal tampering period that we're in right now. But with Josh Oliver, let's add this to the stream here. So, we pulled some clips. You're going to see him. He's kind of on this outside, the right side there. And look at him just drive 59. Like the guy, he clearly put on some muscle, but he can also kind of catch. I think that was, you kind of called that out when he was coming in from San Jose State back in 2019. He was more of an athletic tight end. Here's some footage of him at the combine, making some good catches. But yeah, his blocking ability is really what stood out probably to the Vikings when they went to sign him. Look at this catch. Are you kidding me?
Fantastic. I mean, and it's not just a blocking ability, because, when you look at a catch like that and you look at his athletic profile, I think he ran like in the low 4.6s at 6'5", 250 or so at the combine. And granted, again, that was 4 years ago, but so when you look at a profile of a backup tight end, you want a guy who has that ability to be able to block, do that inline blocking, the dirty work, so that can free up TJ to do a little bit more in the receiving category, because he is so good at that. But it also getting more athleticism at that position, at that tight end 2 mark, was something that we needed to do. You look at Johnny Munt, who you had mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Not the most, sure, he can go out, he can catch a pass, and sure, he was, adequate at all of that. And he actually came up with a lot of big plays and big third down catches and whatnot throughout the season, especially pre TJ Hawkinson. But having somebody who can maybe be a little bit more dynamic and just a significantly better inline blocker was, I think, something of interest for the Vikings. So I like the signing. Now, when you look at the numbers at a quick glance, you see 3 years, $21 million. You're like, yikes, $7 million a year. That's hefty for a backup tight end. But then and again, we don't know the details yet, but you look at 10.75 million guaranteed. That to me tells me that, this is probably more of a 2-year deal. Yep. We're going to push some of that money down the line, and we're going to have a relatively cheaper cap hit this year. So you're not likely going to see a $7 million cap hit against us this year. It's likely going to be somewhere in the $3 to $4 million range. So until we fully get a look at those details, which as Doogie kind of had mentioned, might not come out for a couple days, just given the fact that this is legal tampering period. So nothing becomes official until the new league year starts, and we can't afford them right now. So with this deal, this likely puts us, as we are starting to inch closer to the green, I guess the green is what you'd call it. We're now slipping a little bit further back into the red, now roughly at about 10 million over the cap.
Yeah, another thing to kind of call out with this signing, and we've alluded to it with the Pro Football Focus grade of, being one of the best run blockers in the NFL at tight end last year. It's something that Darren Wolfson brought up earlier today on our show. It's something that we've talked about, but the Vikings last year wanted to run the ball more, and they didn't. I don't know if it was just opportunity. I don't know if it was just Kevin O'Connell in his first true year as play caller, maybe reverting back to that, pass happy mindset, which is fine. We won 13 games. But Cook quietly rushed for 1,000 yards last year, but they really want to put more emphasis on that. And so getting a guy like Josh Oliver here, granted, when you look at the contract, it might spook you a little bit, but you talk about the structure, that's key, and we'll find that out in a few days here. But getting someone like Josh Oliver in here will really help this team run a lot of 12 personnel, really try and, establish the run. I'm not saying they're going to do it like Mike Zimmer used to do, but they're going to really try and establish the run, and have maybe a more balanced attacking offense. And maybe, maybe this is why, or maybe this is, a reason for them not to go get a wide receiver. Or maybe that's why they don't need Adam Thielen, is because they feel like, well, we can kind of supplement Adam Thielen's departure with a little bit more Dalvin Cook, maybe sprinkle in some Jalen Naylor if they feel he's ready, or who knows, maybe they'll come out and get another guy here.
Yeah. I mean, you sure hope that they do bring somebody else in. And based on what Doogie had said earlier on the show, they are exploring that as an option here. So, it's something that we need to keep an eye out for over these next few days, whether that is going to be in the free agency market, or it's going to be pretty telling if, we go sign a couple different cornerbacks and then we don't sign a receiver, because then that likely means 23 might be wide open for a receiver at that spot. So, which I don't think anyone on this show is going to complain about. No. I'm still hoping for a trade back because we need more picks, but that wouldn't be a bad venture to go down either. So, yeah. So outside of that, not a lot of free agency news for us, at least on our team, but we do have a few different players that are former Vikings that decided to sign with other teams. So I'm going to start with your favorite.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, you're good. Actually, let's talk about this one, because this is probably the most interesting of the bunch. So Patrick Peterson, he just announced a couple hours ago that he had reached agreement with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't have all of the information in front of me, but I want to say it was roughly, again, raw numbers, 2 years, 14 million or so. It's on average around 7 million a year, but only 5 guaranteed, or just over 5 guaranteed. So again, what that tells me is it's likely a 1-year deal, and we'll kind of see where that goes for him. So interesting, because we heard that maybe there was going to be interest with the Bengals, and now he's signing with the Bengals competitor, or one of their rival, I should say, in the Steelers. Not necessarily on the verge of a ring, right, or of Super Bowl contention, but who knows? They did make that playoff push last year. So interesting signing there. What were your thoughts when you saw that?
Yeah, well, obviously the first thing is just like last year and the year before, Peterson went on his podcast, All Things Covered, to kind of break it down where he was going to sign, and came up with the Steelers. One thing that stood out to me is it sounds like there was mutual interest to come back here, but Kwesi, much like we've seen him do thus far this offseason, is he's got a number in mind for these players, and this is really one of the most difficult parts of being a GM, is removing that emotional aspect from it. But he had a number in mind for what Patrick Peterson was worth, and it clearly exceeded that amount. And so had nothing but great things to say about the organization here, about Kwesi, about Kevin O'Connell, even shouted out the local media at one point, and talked about how great they were. So, I mean, it's not a huge surprise for me to see Patrick Peterson gone. I know we had heard rumblings that Flores wanted him and Patrick Peterson wanted back, but again, we hear about this stuff all the time, and it's got to match up in the contract, and the player has desires, the teams have desires, and if they can't come to an agreement, it's just not going to work out. So I wish Patrick Peterson the best, but I also don't know how well he would have done in a Brian Flores scheme, right? Like, he's much more of a he probably doesn't quite fit the physical presence that Flores wants in an outside corner, and so that's why I think the draft is going to be a really good spot for that. But before we get your thoughts on kind of Patrick Peterson leaving, I feel like this is a good segue here. The cornerback market's starting to dry up a little bit when we think about some guys that we might even want to consider signing. The news broke today when we were on with Doogie. Cam Sutton, went to the Lions, I believe, right? Jamal Dean re-signed with Tampa Bay. Jonathan Jones re-signed with the New England Patriots. And so that's 3 corners off the board right away. And they got paid some pretty decent money. And so now you're sitting here wondering, okay, we just spent $21 million on a tight end that's going to block for us, which is great. Like, give yourself a pat on the back, I guess. But the real need here is cornerback. Like, when are we going to go get cornerbacks? And so I guess I'm a little bit confused today. And obviously there's a lot of time before, free agency is done. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so on the Patrick Peterson front, again, I just didn't see the skill set fit, because, at this, 10 years ago, absolutely, he would have been fantastic. One of the greatest cover corners of our generation. But when you look at it from his skill set now, he's more of that zone corner kind of guy now. Could he line up and play, press man? Sure. But we kind of saw how some of these young guys like Christian Watson can blow right past him, and he's lost a bit of a step. So I just didn't think that was going to really be the best fit. Now, where I am a little concerned is, Brian Asamoah, for example, he threw out a tweet with Will Smith in the living room, and with looking around and there's nobody there, right? So I think he's kind of feeling the departure of these veterans are hitting him a bit. And again, Mary had mentioned, what's going to happen with Harrison Smith. We're not sure. We don't know yet. Again, the last we've heard was the fact that it was leading towards a departure, straight up cut, but we don't have any evidence of that at this point in time, and we haven't heard anything new. So once we do, that's going to be breaking news content that we'll go live for in the moment.
For sure.
So,
for sure.
back to cornerback market. So, we had a lot of a list of guys that we were excited about. And there's a list of guys that even Doogie said that we had interest in. And one of those guys was Cam Sutton, who went to, got a handsome payday. I mean, I think it was north of 11 million or something like that. I think it was per year. And again, raw numbers here, but 11 million is quite hefty, for what we can afford, at least at this point in time. And, obviously we had interest in Jamel Dean as fans. Doogie had mentioned we have Sean Murphy Bunting as somebody that is of interest and that we've maybe made contact with, who again would be a good, he's got inside out flexibility. Byron Murphy, who is still out there, and again, same inside out flexibility. I assume that price tag's gonna be pretty high as well. But you see Jonathan Jones re-signing with his team, Jamel Dean re-signing with his team, and Cam Sutton going, and I think there's one other big corner that I'm drawing a blank on right now. And then of course Patrick Peterson. So yeah, the free agent market is drying up quickly. Granted, this is a great draft for it, but again, we don't have draft picks. We have, I think, 5 draft picks this year. Right now. So granted, we can always trade back if somebody's willing to trade up, but at this point in time, we need to find something. So I know a lot of fans are advocating for Duke Shelley as an option. I think we need to make probably a bigger splash than that. With I'm not saying we don't bring Duke Shelley in, bring him in. I can't imagine he should be too expensive given he only really put up. I mean, he put up really good tape, but it was only, I don't know, not enough to warrant a big multi-year, even north of $5 million a year contract. So,
and here's my concern with Duke Shelley. I was a big stand for him, and I would love if he were back, but we talk about it with Patrick Peterson and trying to meet that middle ground for both parties to be, happy. And I don't know if it's going to happen with Duke Shelley. And my reasoning is kid balled out for 8 games, balled out, had the perfect opportunity, led the league in pass breakups, I think, through the second half of the season. He was just playing phenomenal, and it really started in that Week 10 game in Buffalo. But you get a chance to test the market, and you're gonna go for whatever. Like, you're gonna set your price high and hope that one team bites on it. And the Vikings know what they have in Duke Shelley, so I don't know if they're gonna necessarily bite, because I have a feeling that Duke Shelley is not the complete player that we saw last year. He's probably somewhere in the middle of, practice squad from the Chicago Bears to that complete level of dominance we saw in the last 8 weeks of the season. But I don't want to go blow the bank on him. And so, to your point, I think there's some other guys out there. We've talked about them. Byron Murphy, Sean Murphy Bunting. I'm a fan of Rock Yassin, an impending free agent from the Raiders. And the thing with all of those guys, and we're seeing this trend so far, is they don't want to get older on this Vikings defense. I think that's crystal clear in the message that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah is sending. We do not want to get older. There's a reason why we're targeting younger players. I mean, look at the ages of the guys that Doogie mentioned today. Cam Sutton's like 27. Byron Murphy's about to turn 26. I think Sean Murphy Bunting's about to turn 27. Like, these are young guys that you can sign to a 3-4 year contract, backloaded, front loaded, whatever you want to do. But it's young
keep
guys.
That flexibility. I mean, that's huge, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They're done being pigeonholed by their aging veterans. And I think we should all embrace that. And it's going to be a little slow, but as long as they're bringing in young guys with potential, I think I'm cool with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Another big name that we're all used to that signed with a new team, or at least, and it broke up just shortly before we went live here on the show, was Eric Kendricks. So It looks like Eric Kendricks has found a home with the Los Angeles Chargers. So he'll have an opportunity to play alongside my guy Kenneth Murray, and maybe just completely replace him and make him more of a practice, or not a practice squad, but a special teams kind of guy and backup. But yeah, so he's going to go in and help solidify that Chargers linebacker room, and wish him all the best, because I know you're a big fan of his. I've been a big fan of his. I hope that he can kind of find in that next gear that he was missing last year again, because I think it's there. And hopefully he, I didn't see anything on contract, so hopefully he got a pretty payday as well.
Yeah, I don't think that news has broke yet of quite what the contract details would be, but he came from UCLA, and so he obviously has an affinity out there. I know if you follow his now wife on Instagram, she's they're always out in their place in LA in the off season, so they love it out there, and it makes sense that maybe he ends his career there, but it will be a little weird seeing him in a different jersey, but good luck to Kendricks. I hope he does well, and he's got a gauntlet of quarterbacks that he's got to face, at least with Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes out there in the AFC West.
Yeah.
One other nugget here, Cameron Dantzler was picked up by the Washington Commanders today as well, so that's some old Vikings news there as well.
They're going to have some two tall, lanky corners out there with Dantzler and St. Just. So
yeah,
hopefully he can find the secret sauce he was missing here. I mean, it all just came down to availability. He was hurt a lot. I know he was in Zimmer's doghouse for a while, but I think a very talented player if he can stay on the field and can put it together. So wish him the best.
So when we look forward, then, as we kind of round out this show, what are you looking for a Viking splash here in the next couple of days? Obviously, the tight end's not going to do it. Maybe.
Hey, I was excited about the tight end, to be honest. Again, I knew that was a need, so I'm not bitter about that like some fans are. But yeah, I mean, obviously, cornerback's a big one. We need a cornerback. We have Andrew Booth, Caleb Evans. I forget that other kid's name that he hasn't played it down for us. So really we just don't have, we have two players who most common fans would really know, who've played for us over the last year on roster. And outside of that, we have nothing. So we need to go sign somebody. Byron Murphy is the wish list. Rock Yassin, I'm all about it. And Sean Murphy Bunting. I mean, those are going to be the headliners. So that, I think those, a signing of one of them would get everyone excited here. The other big target we need to probably try to address is center. Whether it's a body to compete against an eventual draft pick, or it's a legitimate center that can just be a plug and play starter. So obviously we have Garrett Bradbury out there. The center market is drying up pretty quickly. Ethan Pocic decided to re-sign, I think, 3-year, $18 million with the Browns. Bradley Bozeman decided to re-sign with the Panthers at 3-year, $18 million.
Yes.
And Questenberry, I think, re-signed with Texans. I think it was Texans. So a lot of these guys, and McGovern got signed today as well. No, that was the guard, not the center. That was the guard.
No, Connor McGovern got signed today.
Well, there's two Connor McGoverns.
You're shitting me.
There's two Connor McGoverns. So one's a guard. I think he played for Dallas, and then one's, I believe, a center that played for the Jets.
Just chat for like 2 minutes. You're lying.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty positive. Pretty sure at least.
I'll give you something to chat about. James Cook just tweeted the eyeball emojis and then tagged his brother. And then tagged the Buffalo Bills. So
that would be, I mean, that's been a commonplace with them losing Devin Singletary. You'd think that, they would like to have somebody that would be able to complement James Cook, and having his older brother be able to come in and do that would actually be pretty awesome, and a really good feel-good story, probably make you even a bigger fan of the Bills than you already are with Stephon Diggs already being there. So yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, if we, could get a draft pick out of it and add to the 5 picks that we have, that would be great. I know some fans are probably thinking, oh, we're going to get a third, or, no, we're not. 6,
wasn't the
maybe
offer a 7th? I think that's what I saw.
7. Yeah. Doogie had said that a team has offered us a 7th, and we're, probably holding strong on a no there, because he does have more value than that, in my opinion. Hopefully we'd be able to get into that 5th round range, but again, I'm not holding my breath. And then again, if we get rid of Dalvin Cook, that's great. We get some cap savings and all of that, which is awesome, but that creates another big hole in this team, where, we would have, and then at that point, you got to go and just talk to the Niners about seeing if they want Kirk Cousins at that point.
I mean, like Sam Darnold today. I don't know if that's
yeah, I saw that. So but you gotta, at that point, you'd assume you're throwing in the towel. I mean, again, Dalvin Cook's production can be replaceable, but I mean, he was a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah.
So unless we're going to go ahead and re-sign Alex Madison, which again, I don't think he's got the ability to replace Cook. So at that point, you're probably going, at that point, you're probably going to look at in the draft or something like that. But, we'll see. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that could play out. So
back to your Connor McGovern thing. You are right. There are 2. One played for the Cowboys, or one played for the Cowboys and now is playing for the Bills. One was an impending free agent, or is an impending free agent with the Jets. So yeah, the center market, I'm sure we're gonna get some traction there in the coming days. Hopefully, we know that the Vikings want Bradbury back. It's just a matter of kind of landing on a good number that makes sense for both parties involved. So
yeah. So I mean, I think, as we go into day 2 tomorrow, where any legitimate large breaking news will probably, have content for you right away for everyone that's listening in on this. Otherwise, we'll probably do another show like this, recapping day 2 if there's any news, and try to keep you up to date with all the latest Vikings news and content here.
Yes, and by the way, we appreciate every one of the comments that come in here. Feel free to ask us questions, even if it's after the video has posted. The comment section in YouTube is great. Ryan and I and Miles, we really try to go back and respond to your questions, comments. We really appreciate it. We're all Viking fans here, and we want the best for this team. And so we love the passion that you kind of all bring to the table. So, yeah, and like Ryan said as well, if we get some breaking news tomorrow that's noteworthy enough, if another tight end is signed, I don't think we'll probably go live for that. But in general, if it's noteworthy, we'll kind of hop on and do a live show for you. Otherwise, look for more content throughout the week, throughout the month. Draft stuff is right around the corner. We got a lot of good guests lined up, plugging in those dates, so that'll be great as well to get you guys informed for who the Vikings might draft come April. Remember, we want to hit that goal of 3K subs, so hit the like and subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers, make fake accounts. We don't care. Let's just hit that number by the time draft season is completed. So until next time, everybody, SKOL Vikings.